Okay, so it is exactly 12 o'clock right now. So we will allow for about a minute or so for people to start filling in. Thank you for joining us today. I am Jennifer Krishka. I am the CEO of Horizon. We are a social change organization dedicated to advancing the status of all women and girls locally, nationally, and in Israel. If you are interested in learning more about our work, our website is joinhorizon.org. So today's topic is abortion access and rights in the state of Florida. I am glad to see so many people have registered for today's webinar. So we are joined today. You can see our lovely panelists, Jessica, Bree, and Laura. So I will let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their respective organizations. We will cover a variety of questions today, and then we will also take questions from all of you. So if you would like to ask a question of a panelist or panelists, please use the Q&A feature. It's on the bottom of my screen. I don't know where it is on your screen, depending on what you're using, but it's down there somewhere. So we will do our best to get through as many questions as possible. So I am just going to randomly choose a panelist based on where you are on my screen. So Jessica, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm Jessica Hayden. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Executive Director of Emergency Medical Assistance. We also go by Emma, and we are an abortion fund located in Palm Beach County. We primarily serve South Florida. And so what that means as an abortion fund, we help Floridians in our area access care. So we pay for their abortion procedures. We pay for people that are beyond 15 weeks leave Florida to seek care elsewhere. And we are still currently funding other Southerners coming into Florida who are under 15 weeks. I've been the ED for about a year. And if you want to check out our website, it's emawpb.org for more information or to donate.
Thank you. All right, Bree.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. It means a lot. I'm Bree. I'm the Director of Case Management for Tampa Bay Abortion Fund, or TBAF. We are an abortion fund that helps mainly in the Tampa area, as well as people who are traveling from out of state to Tampa. We help with the financial and logistical barriers to abortion access. So we help fund appointments at the clinics. We help with travel, such as flights, gas to get here, hotels, childcare. Anything that kind of stands in the way of people being able to access abortion care. We help about 300 people a month right now, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. And to learn more about us, you can go to our website, tbafund.com.
Thank you. And Laura.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Laura Goodhue. I use she and her pronouns, and I head up the advocacy arm for Planned Parenthood in Florida. There are two Planned Parenthood affiliates in Florida, but I represent the 501c4 as well as the 501c3, Planned Parenthood Southeast and North Florida. And also here today to talk about the ballot initiative that Planned Parenthood is very much a part of to restore and defend access to abortion in Florida.
Thank you. I really appreciate all of you being here for this panel, and of course for everyone who is watching today. Something else I wanted to point out too, so all of these funds are either current or previous recipients of a Horizon Grant Award. And we are really proud to support all of the work that you are doing, which is so critical and on the ground. So, all right, so let's just get into some of the questions. So I know that we were anticipating potentially a decision on Friday about the 6-week ban. So I just want to kind of get us started with that question. If you can kind of tell us where we are with that. Jessica, I'm going to have you take this question first.
Sure. So the Florida Supreme Court had the first oral arguments last Friday, which was the 8th. From there is going to be a decision which can come out at any time. It could be this week, it could be in a month from now. When that decision is made, we're expecting that to go against the protections of privacy in the Florida State Constitution, which would uphold the 15-week ban and then by default allow the 6-week ban to be enacted. So when that decision is made, 30 days out from that point is when Florida will go to 6 weeks, which cuts off obviously a lot of care to many individuals. I know that that's kind of intentionally vague and confusing, which is the point. But when we have more information, I know all 3 organizations on here and Horizon, as well as the other abortion funds in Florida, will definitely keep our supporters and everyone apprised as this unfolds.
Thank you. And Laura, if you could just, for anyone who's watching right now who maybe isn't as familiar with kind of how we ended up here, can you just give like a kind of a brief like history, I guess, on how we ended up with the 6-week ban?
Yeah, so Florida's so when Roe v. Wade was overturned in 2022, it meant that we no longer had a federal right to abortion care. Now, Florida and some other states do have stronger protections in the state constitution to privacy. So Roe v. Wade was based on an implied privacy right, but Florida's Article 1, Section 23 actually says that government shall not intrude in our personal private lives. So what's more personal and private than your rights to bodily autonomy? And so that had really stopped a lot of abortion restrictions that the Florida legislature either passed or had a chilling effect from them passing those laws, right? But very much kind of like we've seen with the U.S. Supreme Court, Florida State Supreme Court has had turnover of justices who are take a more conservative approach to the governing documents and the rights of their citizens. And so we've actually seen a couple of abortion restrictions go into effect with this new court, including a mandatory 24-hour delay, as well as just some other laws that have been overturned since Roe v. Wade was overturned. So it's like a cascade effect. Therefore, the Florida legislature, who loves to pass abortion restrictions, passed not only a 15-week ban that went into effect the same month that Roe v. Wade fell, but also a 6-week ban. And then the 6-week ban, which is before most people know they're pregnant, the author of that legislation basically said, look, when the courts decide that the 15-week ban is actually constitutional, the 6-week ban goes into effect. So that's why this has nothing to do with the 15-week ban. It actually has to do with the 6-week ban, which again, will just have devastating impacts on the patients that we see.
Thank you. So both Bree and Jessica, I would love to hear from both of you, given that you are, on the ground in the funds. So as Laura just mentioned, currently the ban is after 15 weeks. So can you both just speak to that? So tell us about some of the barriers people are seeking care under the current ban. And I guess like what things look like on the ground at your, respective organizations. Bree, why don't you take that first?
Yeah, so even with the 15-week ban, there's still a lot of barriers. There's still plenty of people who are over 15 weeks and now are having to travel to other states. A lot of those being DC, Illinois, Maryland are some big ones. So they're pretty much traveling all the way to the north at this point, since Florida is pretty much the only state left in the South, known kind of as a haven where a lot of people can travel. So there is that barrier. And just the fact that they're having to travel is extremely hard. A lot of people aren't able to do that, not even just money-wise. Some people just can't leave. They have children, they have families, some are in, domestic abusive relationships where they can't leave the state. And even now with under 15, we're seeing a lot of people who are very close to that cusp and they are able to stay here, but it still is, a higher cost of anywhere from $400 to $800 at the clinic.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yeah, and I would say, as Laura mentioned, with the 24-hour waiting period, so we're talking about a first appointment, which is just a consultation, and then a second appointment, and then sometimes a third appointment, depending upon the procedure. So and that's again for people locally. So that's a lot of time people have to rearrange childcare or take off work, or again, travel to another part of the state for care. I would also say the only exception we have now, which also let me highlight that exceptions to abortion bans are trash. But the only one we currently have now are for fetal fatal anomalies, and that's such a small percentage. And there's a lot of people that have fetal anomalies, which you generally don't find out about till after 15 weeks. So those people are needing to travel out of state for care as well, and just didn't anticipate that they would be caught in what we're seeing with abortion bans. And so we are helping just a huge number of people seek care in state and travel out of state, certainly.
Okay. And so we kind of touched upon that this is, which I find kind of astounding, that, Florida is some kind of haven for people who still need abortion care. That seems pretty outrageous to me. So kind of talking about the impact that this has kind of on the southern states in general, if you could speak to that. I'm also curious to know, and Laura, certainly you can weigh in on this too, maybe like the percentage or the ratio of people that you're serving who are from within the state versus people who may be coming into Florida in order to seek abortion care. So, Bree, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so this definitely still affects the South. And like you said, it is pretty crazy that Florida is a haven in the South with only 15 weeks, but we are the highest right now. And that means people from Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, they're all traveling here because it's technically the closest to them. And I can't exactly say our percentage right now offhand, but we help anywhere from like 20 to 50 people per month from out of state. And that's just people coming to Tampa. So there's plenty of people who we don't even know about who are going to Orlando, Jacksonville, Tallahassee, like all over. And they might be getting care from their own abortion fund or someone else, or they are able to cover it themselves. But I think if we did get a 6-week ban, it would really hurt the whole entire South. It wouldn't just be Florida, it would be every single state down here is now going red. And that pretty much just leaves the North open for people to go to who are already very busy with other states who have been banned by them who are now traveling to them. So we're going to see a lot of waiting periods and a lot of people not being able to get care because they just can't. It's going to be very stressful for them.
Right. Laura, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, the health centers, Planned Parenthood has 15 health centers that provide abortions in the entire state, and Tallahassee and Jacksonville have seen the biggest increase because of their, proximity to the north. And we saw it's hard, probably like a quadruple increase in the number of patients after Roe v. Wade fell, to just kind of give you an idea. That's actually all patients, but the significant was from the abortion patients. The Planned Parenthood has a patient navigation program, which is it works very closely with the abortion funds to ensure that people can afford paying for their care, and then also pays for the travel. And we were spending on average $15,000 a month on hotels for people who are coming from out of state. I mean, as far away as Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, you name it, coming to Florida, some of them driving through the night, really not knowing what the restrictions are in Florida, which is a challenge because this 24-hour waiting period means that some of them didn't know they had to spend the night, right? Like they thought they were going to be able to come and then go back, and then they find out they have to wait. And sometimes it's more than 24 hours because it depends upon when the doctor is available to provide that care, because a doctor is the one that has to see them. You can't just do a consent like you do for, I don't know, any other, like I had hand surgery last month and the nurse called me on the phone. No, you have to go in person, talk to the physician that's going to provide the procedure, and then come back a minimum of 24 hours later. But Planned Parenthood provides the full range of healthcare services. So for a while, we were not able to get doctors every single day. So you might end up waiting, 3 days before you could actually complete that appointment. And then you can imagine the scheduling nightmare that this creates, right? So for people who are already trying to access healthcare in the state, it's a challenge. But this is just almost insurmountable barriers that we're seeing from people coming from other states.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yeah, I would just highlight, like, with the focus of people needing to travel to the north once we go to 6 weeks, is that abortion bans keep people pregnant longer. So, the north or blue states are what are typically focused on as being the haven. So people that obviously live in those areas that are seeking abortion care, they have to wait because Southerners are also filling up those appointment times. So it just prolongs everyone's pregnancy. And again, that's prolonging people's health issues, medical risks, whatever it may be. And so these are intentionally cruel effects that people have to face while seeking care. And there's nothing else, there's no other type of health procedure that someone has to leave where they live to get. And, we've been watching this happen across the country. I think when you look at the South, especially Texas, it's really indicative of what could come for the rest of the country, including states that maybe think that they're safe, because these types of laws can continue to pop up and like erode people's bodily autonomy everywhere.
Thank you. So I want to circle back to the exceptions. I'm not sure, if everyone who is attending today's webinar is kind of fully informed on what that really looks like, because you hear exceptions for rape or for incest, sometimes for the life of the mother. So can you kind of talk about what exceptions are currently in place, and if there are going to be any changes in the foreseeable future with the intended 6-week ban? And then maybe also talking about kind of the health implications for not having any exceptions or broader exceptions. Bree, I'll start with you again.
Yeah, so right now with 15 weeks, there is the fetal anomaly one, but that one doesn't really happen as much as it should. A lot of people do show those, but doctors are kind of too scared to work on people and give them an abortion when they do have that, because the laws are so tricky and they don't want to lose their license. So even if they are showing that, it has to be nearly deadly. And even then, it's really hard to get the care within the amount of time needed. So people just go ahead and travel to like DC, where they can get it done if they're over 15 weeks. So we do see a lot of that, which is really sad because they say they'll do it, but we know that it's just kind of gearing towards doctors to get them in trouble for something that they shouldn't be in trouble for, that they put in place, but then go back and say that it's wrong. And then with 6 weeks with rape and incest, that's also kind of the same. A lot of people don't want to come forward to the police and file a report, for rape or incest. They're both very, very difficult subjects for people to talk about. And we've also seen a lot of times people go there and they're not believed, or it's just a whole thing. So that definitely won't be what we think it might be. People aren't going to do it. It's going to be hard. And then they'd have to show the doctor either a police report or a restraining order. And I could also see that kind of going wrong the same for doctors, because they're going to be scared to take something thinking it could be fake, and now they're going to lose their license. So I do think that's going to be a huge problem. And, they gave us that, but it's really not going to be used as much as we might think.
And is there currently an exception, for the life of the mother?
Technically, Yeah.
It's just the currently at 15 weeks, it's just the fetal fatal anomaly.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of, but not really. And even then, we're not seeing it done as much.
Yeah, it's just not meaningful. I mean, it's like a major bodily an organ that produces a major bodily function. I'm trying to think of the like actual statute language, but I think exactly what Bree was saying is that, you know, physicians, they will be committing a felony and criminalized and lose their license. And that, you know, people that have been pregnant know, like, you don't get that anatomy scan until like 18 or 20 weeks. A lot of people just talk about, oh, it's a boy, it's a girl, we'll do the gender reveal. And that's what you focus on at that time period. But the purpose of an anatomy scan is to see how the pregnancy is developing. And so even with like the 15-week ban, if there is like a serious issue like encephalitis, or we've seen Potter syndrome, we've seen, you know, people who don't have amniotic fluid, like there's a lot of like situations that doctors are trained to take care of their patients, right? Whether it is the health of, you know, the pregnancy developing or the health of the pregnant person, that their hands are tied and they can't practice to the best of their ability. And we have to send them out of state. So those are the realities, like with the 15-week ban. With the 6-week ban, you know, it's just, again, we don't even see on the ultrasound
Right.
a pregnancy until like 4.5, 5 weeks pregnant. So just to give you an idea, and especially if you're not trying to get pregnant, right?
Right.
Like you're not like constantly taking a pregnancy because you're like, oh wow, I was pregnant. I didn't expect to be pregnant. And then to even people, if you call like an OBGYN now and you say, yeah, I think I'm like, you know, 6 or 7 weeks pregnant, they'll be like, well, don't come back until 12. Great. Take your vitamins, especially if you're on Medicaid, which a lot of people don't know. Medicaid actually pays for over half of the births in our state, right? So a lot of children are already born into poverty. And if you're on Medicaid and you're just trying to get maternal, you know, health care for your pregnancy, they will tell you, okay, ma'am, wait till like 12 weeks and then come in. So there's just people are going to run out of options.
Right. Yeah, thank you. I think it's really important to highlight like the health implications around this issue because I think that, you know, given abortion is such a politicized topic, that the focus is always on like unplanned pregnancies and in a way that sort of demonizes, right, people who are seeking abortion care. But for, you know, for the many people, right, who are trying to start families and who are actively trying to get pregnant, these are very, very real concerns. I remember when I was trying to get pregnant with my second child, my daughter, I was taking at-home pregnancy tests. And when I finally got a positive, which was like at 6 weeks, and I called my doctor, they were like, we won't see you before 8 weeks to even confirm the pregnancy. So, I mean, I can see that this is such a real issue for so many families. And it's an issue that is not just impacting women, right? Like, this is a family issue. So if you are a couple and you're trying to conceive, then these are issues that are impacting, right, like both partners in that relationship, as well as the other members of the household. And I just think it's really important that we kind of focus on the health implications for this, which are serious and staggering. Jessica, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to speak to that. I mean, in this like last now over a year of 15 weeks, we have helped several patients that these were wanted pregnancies that they didn't classify as fetal fatal anomalies. So they had to go out of state and they still, you know, they already have kids, they want to try again. And I've had a patient contact me recently who we helped earlier this summer saying, like, I want to try again. I'm scared because of everything I had to go through. We helped pay towards her procedure out of state. We helped pay for her to travel, she and her husband out of state. And she's scared to keep trying because she doesn't want to go through this again.
Right.
And then we've also heard from people who are not going to try to have kids again because they've already had to endure this. So again, the implications of this are really broad and it's hurting so many people.
Thank you. So there are several questions that are popping up. So I'm actually going to ask one of the questions that we are getting because there were two of them around the same topic. So two different attendees have submitted questions around abortion medication. So for self-managed abortion. So can you, I guess, Jessica and then Bree, maybe talk a little bit about that? like what the options are, how these bans are impacting that. Someone's asking about resources to promote plancpills.org. So yeah, I'd just love to hear from you about this topic.
Sure. So medication abortion is also something that someone can have at a clinic. So someone can have a procedural abortion or someone can have a medicated abortion there. Self-managed abortion is when someone through Plan C and then through Aid Access is able to get abortion pills mailed to their home, and then they are self-managing their abortion at home. What I think people don't understand, though, when they are getting a medication abortion through a clinic is that it's just the mifepristone that someone is taking in clinic. So the first pill, which has also been in the news lately for trying to limit access to that nationally. And then the misoprostol someone is taking in their house. So you're miscarrying in your home when you're doing a medicated abortion via the clinic, and you're also miscarrying in your home when you're doing self-managed abortion. The biggest thing is some states there's legality behind self-managed abortion and getting those pills, but they are available in all 50 states, again, through Aid Access. Aside from that, the biggest difference would be the cost. Aid Access, I think it's $125, but it's also on a sliding fee scale. Whereas if you were to do a medication abortion via the clinic, that cost, I think, is like $500 or $600, then can be covered through various grants to reduce that cost.
Thank you. Bree, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, sorry in advance too. There's yard work outside, so if you hear that, sorry. So I did see the question kind of about us giving it out, which I do just want to say is illegal for us to do. It can only be done through Aid Access, Plan C clinics. So we have absolutely nothing to do with that. We do love the resource of Plan C and Aid Access, but we also know a lot of people do like to go to clinics for this care. They kind of are scared for the self-managed abortion route, given it is a great route to go, especially for people who are in banned states who can't travel. It's a great resource to have. And I think Aid Access and Plan C are absolutely wonderful. We've worked with them a little bit and they are great. And I think this is a great resource for people, not only in the South, but the North too. It gets shipped right to your house and you can use it right then and there. You don't have to go to the clinic. You have a busy life. You're all good. But yeah, I just want to touch up on the subject that we do have nothing to technically do with self-managed abortion or giving out pills.
And that Plan C does not give out pills. Plan C is informational, and sometimes people get that confused.
Yeah, and the reason being, just in Florida statute, I head up like the policy and lobbying in Florida, and it's the reason that we need this ballot initiative is that the Florida legislature has passed many restrictions that some are just kind of like indirectly make it extremely impossible for people to manage their pregnancies and their futures. So statute says that an abortion can only be provided in Florida by a licensed physician in a licensed abortion clinic. In a facility. So hospitals also do terminations of pregnancies. They just may not be thought of as abortion clinics. So that's kind of the conversation around self-managed abortion, right? But again, it's like super important that people be able to manage, what's happening with their bodies and their lives. But it's another reason that we need to stop politicians from interfering in medical and healthcare decisions and leave it to the patients and the doctors. So the ballot language is very specific, even though we had, talked about Article 1, Section 23 in the Florida Constitution already stopping government interference in our personal private lives. But FloridiansProtectingFreedom.com is the website. We can put that in the chat, but it basically says that the government shall not penalize, delay, or restrict abortion in the state of Florida, which is really important to stop the legislature from imposing more restrictions. Because really nothing, if the state Supreme Court says that a 6-week ban is constitutional, there is nothing stopping this Florida legislature from passing a complete abortion ban. within the next couple of years. Session starts in January this year, so we'll be watching that as well.
So, I mean, so since we moved on to kind of the policy side and talking about the amendment, Laura, can you just kind of walk us through what's going on with that, just as, you know, a strategy to try to expand abortion access? So I'm sure many people who are watching right now have signed the petitions and may be aware, but just like, tell us what's happening with this amendment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So if you haven't already, I put the website there for the campaign, which is a collaborative effort between organizations. It's ACLU of Florida, Planned Parenthood, Florida Rising, Women's Voices of Southwest Florida, and then we have some independent providers, hopefully abortion funds soon on our advisory panel, so that we are intentionally being diverse with the people that are running the campaign to make sure that we're lifting up the voices of impacted individuals. And so we launched on May 8th. And so it's 3 or 4 months into the campaign, and we have collected over 600,000 petitions. The state validated petitions shows 297,000. Our goal is 1.2 million petitions gathered by the end of December. The state requires 891,000. But we want to make sure we have some wiggle room there. And if we're successful, this will be on the ballot in November of 2024. So you can go to that website and, you know, see the language, sign the petition, turn it in. Volunteers have been a big part of this effort. It's so important, from you know, Indian River County to Pasco County to Miami, all over the state, people are collecting. And just real quickly, like, we think the language is fantastic. It says no law shall prohibit, penalize, delay, or restrict abortion before viability or when necessary to protect the patient's health, as determined by the patient's healthcare provider. So it kind of gets all of those pieces in there. It does say something about a parent or guardian will still be notified before a minor has an abortion. That is because that's already in the state constitution, and we couldn't change that with this language, or it would be thrown out by the courts. A little confusing, but it has to do with the single subject issue, which every constitutional amendment before the voters can only be one subject, and the Supreme Court of Florida, that same Supreme Court that is deciding on whether or not the 6-week ban goes into effect, will be reviewing this language to make sure it is a single subject.
Thank you. So there were 2 questions that came in around the ballot initiative. So I know you can see them, so, but I'll read the question for everybody else. So one of the questions is asking about 22 weeks abortion ban. And then I guess, well, what Planned Parenthood and maybe any other, you know, clinic or organization can do for patients who will need abortion care after the 22 weeks. So I guess first we can maybe cover that one, and then I'll get to the second question.
Well, what's great about the language is that it doesn't say weeks, it says viability. So some pregnancies are never viable, unfortunately, right? And some are before 22 or before 24. So that is the standard, is viability, and it's as determined by the healthcare provider. So will Planned Parenthood perform abortions if we have physicians available that are trained to do it and this passes? Absolutely. There's a whole bunch to say around physician availability, especially with the landscape right now.
Sure.
But that's the standard.
Okay, and so this other question actually kind of ties into that. So
yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The question is around Supreme Court review. There's a lot of laws, just like the Florida legislature has passed laws making it harder for people to get abortion care. They've also passed laws making it harder for citizens to access direct democracy and change our own constitution. One of those is the Supreme Court of Florida reviews the language after, I don't know the percentage, but it's 225,000 signatures have been collected in 8% of half of the congressional districts. And yes, we've achieved that. So there is an official letter from the Division of Elections that went to the Attorney General that says, hey, this campaign did it. Y'all need to review this now. So that's very exciting, have the official letter, but they have until April of 2024 to actually review that language.
Okay, so that answers the question about the timeline then. Thank you. All right. Yeah, we have lots of questions coming in, which is good. Please keep the questions coming because we really want to cover what you're most interested in learning about. All right. So another question coming in is around cost. So, all three of you really can answer this question probably, which is, are you seeing donations still coming in to support your work, or have you seen any kind of slowdown on that? Jessica, I'll start with you.
There's definitely been a slowdown last summer with the Dobbs decision, and then also with our 15-week ban. Funds in Florida and funds across the country and Planned Parenthood, everyone saw an increase in donations. That is definitely drying up, but obviously the need is only growing because since then more and more states have passed bans. So we definitely still need funding so that we can help support people. And again, it's at a huge cost at 15 weeks. To date, we have spent over, just my group, over $270,000 in abortion procedures and in paying for travel. That's locally and out of state. So that's only going to grow to an insurmountable number when we go to 6 weeks. So any amount helps. Again, when you think about donating, even if it's not for a procedure cost, which would be sometimes the higher expense, an Uber or Lyft ride, that can be $50 to $80. So like really any amount helps. Flights, depending upon where people go, that varies. Hotel cost varies. But any amount helps any of us be able to do this important work.
Right. And that doesn't even include staff costs, right? I mean,
well, donations aren't what pay us, and also not all of us are staff either.
Bree.
Yeah, so pretty much everything Jessica said, how it is really drying up right now. And that's because when Roe fell, it was all over the news. Everyone knew about it. It was big and shiny and everyone wanted to be a part of it. And now that it's kind of died down, especially Florida, 6 weeks has been so prolonged that people have kind of like fallen off of that. They don't even know what's going on. Some of them think 6 weeks already happened. So they're kind of like, what's different? Right. And we've spent almost 600,000 this year so far, which is double what we spent all of last year, and we're only in September. And especially if we had a 6-week ban, we'd be spending a lot more, because that would be pretty much all those like 300-ish people a month we're helping. Most of them are going to be more than 6 weeks, and we'd have to pay for them to travel to another state. So that's flight, hotel, procedure cost, ride shares, childcare. That's a lot per person for all the amount of people that we help now.
Sure. So we're getting lots of questions about the best way for people to support your funds and just abortion funds in general. And really anything, anyone can do, right? Who cares about this issue and who cares about abortion access. So obviously donating is really important. I can't emphasize that enough. Whatever you can manage, afford to give is really, really important. So of course, first and foremost, I would say, like, please try to support these funds doing such important work, which is also dangerous in a certain way, right? I mean, for those of you who are like in clinics or in a Planned Parenthood or whatever it may be, like, I know that security is a real concern, for those of you who are on the ground. And so this work is important, and there are, risks for, for all of you who are helping. And so I just want to say, like, thank you, first of all, for doing this, because it's so important. And access, choice with what you do with your own body and bodily autonomy should be, a given, and clearly it's not. And so, we're certainly grateful at Horizon for the work that you're doing. So moving outside of the donation piece, which again is really important, how would each of you encourage people to get involved and to have some kind of impact in a real way?
I can take this first.
Yeah, go
if you
ahead.
want. So I definitely think there's other ways, and not everyone has money to donate. We get that it is a hard time right now. And we've seen people donate in various different ways. People who are artists will donate work to us that we can auction off. We'll do raffles. Kind of just spreading the word about us is a huge thing. If you have a large following on Instagram, that's great. Some people don't even know abortion funds exist. So you just kind of gave them a place to donate to, as well as maybe they need help and they never knew about us. So I think that's great. Volunteering, I know a lot of us right now are kind of at a capacity where we can't train volunteers and work with volunteers. Both me and Emma, or TBAF and Emma, we're only one employee at each. So it's all volunteers after that. And it's kind of hard to be able to keep track of all that, do events and such. So we do get invited to a lot of things like that, but I do want to make it kind of known that we're not able to make it out to everything. We are very, very grateful for everyone, but that's just something that is, we're already very busy. But I do think just sharing our resource, you can have like a drive for us. Like a lot of people just do random events at like bars to raise money. They do like very creative things. So I think that's also a great way to help if you can't just actually donate.
Yes.
I would say following us on social media, sharing your own abortion story if you have one, which helps break the stigma. I do echo what Bree said in regards to volunteering. Like, we really need to get through this hump of whenever this is going to happen at 6 weeks and see what that's going to actually look like. We know it's bad, but how bad is going to be. And then I would also say we've had people do creative things, like people that own yoga studios have donated like a yoga class to us. Also in like the sense of raffling. Bree also kind of touched on this with the different independent clinics that we help fund because of patients traveling, making aftercare kits. So just like some toiletry items and bags, that's really useful. Gift cards to the clinic, like $25 Visa, MasterCard gift cards are really helpful to the clinic. All of that helps the people that we help, and it helps support the clinics that we support.
Thank you, Laura.
There's so much, but this ballot initiative, I mean, absolutely. I think it's the two, right? It's support access. People need access through the funds. They need to pay for their abortion. They need to travel. And then it's the ballot initiative for system change. I mean, yes, the legislature will be free to pass as many laws as they want. And so the time is now. Like, we can't wait. If the 6-week ban goes in effect, if they pass an all-out abortion ban, the ecosystem will dry up and you won't have volunteers or activists to even start a ballot initiative, to start the fundraising to do it. We only have November 2024 to do this. We don't have a shot in 2026. Unfortunately, we have to do it in a presidential election. We have to get 60% of the vote, which is already a huge challenge. But you better believe our opposition, and you talked about security, who are absolutely threatening our doctors and our patients every single day. They will pass laws for an all-out abortion ban. They will pass laws to make it harder to amend our Constitution. So we only have this chance, and we have a huge price tag. It is very expensive to run a campaign. Volunteers can't do it on our own. And I just want to say, Bree and Jessica, like, it is so real, the demands on staff when people have amazing solutions and they want to invite you to everything. And it is so hard to not be there, because we all want to, even Planned Parenthood. And I actually have some staff that can help. We can't be everywhere. So just appreciating the volunteers and kind of taking their own initiative. Like, the signature gathering is so appreciated. When I see like this group up in Stewart right now, who I'm on their email trail, they're like, yeah, we're going to go to this farmer's market and we're going to collect petitions. We're going to do this. And they're doing it on their own, and they're turning it into the supervisor of elections. Thank you. Or they're holding their own house party and then they're just sending in a check. That is so huge to us right now. So thank you. And thank you to obviously the foundation and their support too.
Thank you. So I definitely echo like doing fundraisers in whatever way you can. for like birthdays, or like I know that usually like when I have a birthday or some kind of special milestone, I try to do fundraisers. And this year for me, it has been focused specifically on reproductive rights. Those are really valuable. And like think about like in terms of social media and even with fundraisers, like raising awareness with everyone that regardless of whether or not they live in the state of Florida, I think is really important. Because if someone really cares about abortion access, it doesn't matter if they live in Florida, right? Like they may still want to support efforts here in this state. So just kind of be creative, think about everyone that you can tap into. All good suggestions from everyone on the panel. Thank you. One of the questions that came in was about donating airline miles. So I don't know if that's an option, but is that something that people can do? Anyone?
Appreciate that. We appreciate that, but because of the way that we do booking, that would not be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It wouldn't really work out the way we're able to do it, unfortunately. People can donate like gift cards. We do a lot of like we have an Amazon wish list that has those on it. And I know that's not the same thing, but that's just kind of a different part of it. But yeah, the way we book it wouldn't exactly work out. But I do think everyone that's come up a few times, and I do think that's really kind of people for wanting to donate that.
Bree, if you want to put the wish list in the chat, I think only I'm able to put it where everyone sees it. So post it and I'll share it with everybody so that people can have access to that. Oh, yep. Someone just asked about that. Yep, we will post that momentarily. More, okay. So someone's asking, in how many states is there some kind of ballot initiative around abortion access? So I don't know, Laura, this is something that you can answer.
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
I guess currently, how many states have some kind of a ballot initiative or amendment that they're, trying to get passed?
Florida's the furthest. We have the most signatures, so. But also Ohio, they have qualified, so that's going to be on the ballot in November this year. They have special. I'm going to be wrong. I'm wrong on Ohio. I can't remember. They have qualified, but Florida, in terms of the process, is the furthest. I know that Arizona is thinking about it as well. I want to say Kansas. Then you have some states who are more progressive and already their state governments support them and they just want to affirm it. So that's like the Californias. I'm trying to think, probably New York is doing it. But it's a challenge in terms of fundraising, and we'll just be real about this, right? It is an interesting, in Florida, constitutional referendums have been like usually like this is a long-standing issue and we want to increase the living wage or we want to stop animal cruelty and greyhound racing. This is like other states are facing this. So in terms of fundraising, it is such a challenge. And that's why I was like touting Florida because of the impact in the South. Florida has right now 55 licensed abortion providers. If you look at some of these other, and the number of abortions are exponentially larger than some of these other states. So the impact on the South is just kind of like outsized. And that's why Florida is so important. It's expensive. I'll tell you right now, it's $19 million to qualify. That's kind of terrifying to say out of my mouth, but it's true. So because the Florida legislature has made it really expensive. But we are well on our way to raising that, and we have to for access. Honestly, in the entire South of this country will be shut off if we lose 55 providers.
So, and just to reiterate, Laura, so we do have enough signatures collected already, correct? Is that what you said earlier?
No.
Oh, no, we don't. Okay, so we're still, okay.
We've got to get 1.2 million. We've got 297,000 validated by the state. We have until the end of December to do it.
Okay. And is it so? And the distribution of where the signatures have to come from, right? Like,
yeah, that's important too. But
okay.
Yeah.
So are there particular parts of the state, I guess, where we still need more?
We need it everywhere. We need it everywhere. So don't stop.
Okay.
But we
okay.
will, you have to get it in half of the congressional districts. So the places that we will be, you can't just get them all in Miami-Dade, South Florida.
Right. Right.
The places that we're going to be focusing after we get a certain number is going to be Alachua, Leon, and Duval. Those are kind of our outside of our big hubs. That's where we're going to be going. I'm going to be spending, I love to camp. I'm going to go like spend some time in some state parks and collect signatures in some of those places.
Okay.
But don't stop anywhere. Just keep collecting.
Sure. And is there a way to, I guess, to validate if your like signature was accepted?
No, not like voting, but it's pretty simple, right? You just got to make sure that you put your county, if you think you wrote your county right instead of country, because that's what some people do, you're gonna be fine. We are getting the reports from the supervisor of elections, and if we have capacity, we're curing them, which means we are calling up those voters and saying, hey, you did something wrong. They're not finding you on the files. We're trying to do that. We don't have a lot of capacity right now, but individually right now you cannot.
Okay. And do you still need volunteers to help collect signatures?
Yeah.
Okay. So if that's something that people are interested in doing, where should we send them?
Like you posted the donate button on that website, but there is also a volunteer button to
Okay.
sign up. Yep. And
Great.
and to volunteer to collect signatures, you do not have to register with a state. Like you just need a little clipboard. You get your petitions, you print them out online. You don't need anything as a volunteer. You can just go out and do it. You can go to
Right.
like your family and get them to sign it and then turn it in. But yes, there is a button there where you can sign up to volunteer.
Okay. So if anyone who happens to be watching has friends or is located in one of those counties, then I would say we definitely want to have people on the ground there in particular.
Yeah, the only thing is you can't email them, right? Like it has to be an actual paper
Right.
signature and a wet signature sent into a physical location.
Right. Okay. So I don't know, Laura, do you want to answer this question? And someone's asking about petitions that they live in Gainesville and there's no organizer there. So,
oh my goodness, I get this every single day and I love you. I need an organizer. There's an open position for a regional organizer in Gainesville. If you are interested, let me know. Otherwise, sorry, it's an issue in Gainesville. We recognize it's an issue. I'm trying to hire somebody, but you can still go out and collect signatures.
Okay, excellent. So, so we have a few minutes left. So I'm just going to kind of open this up to a sort of general. I know we covered a lot today, and thank you to everybody who had such great questions. So I guess sort of like closing remarks from each of you, if there's anything specific that we haven't touched upon that you would like to mention or anything that you want to emphasize before we wrap up today's webinar, please go ahead and do that. Bree, let's start with you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So we did touch up on a lot, most of what I can probably think of at the moment. I think the biggest thing right now is abortion funds can be seen kind of like smaller than Planned Parenthood obviously is. We're not as well known. So I do think it's important to put us out there, share our resource that people know we're a thing, to donate to us because we all are spending a lot of money and not getting it back at the same pace as we were a year ago, but the demand is growing like never before. So I do think that's a big thing. And I think the petition is great. I love it. I also think it's important to kind of see that during this time, abortion funds, the patient navigation at Planned Parenthood, we're still going to be working with people for this next year until this goes on November 2024 ballot. So I do think it's kind of important to realize that if we get a 6-week ban, there's going to be a lot of time in between where people are still going to need help, and that's where we're coming into play. So it's very important to donate to your local abortion fund, to share the resource of them, and to realize that we're still out there, even though it's not as much in the news as it was before, that we are all still out there doing more work than we've ever done before.
Okay. Jess.
I just want to say, like, abortion is a popular issue. It's a winning issue. Any place nationwide when we've seen these amendments, they've won, they've passed, they've helped determine governorships, state legislation. So always keep that in mind. Like, yeah, we are up against a lot of hurdles, but we're also winning back little by little. And then I just want to shout out the other Florida abortion funds, Florida Access Network that serves Orlando, the Broward Women Emergency Fund that is in Broward County, and WEN, the Women's Emergency Network serving Miami. We wouldn't be able to do this, TBAF and I, without them. So support them as well.
Thank you. Laura.
There's even a new one in Tallahassee, the Ruth RBG Fund, right? So yes, I mean, support abortion funds. We all work together as an ecosystem. It's super important. I mean, that's it. And just thanks for caring and being on this webinar today.
Thank you. So just again, thank you so much to the three of you for being on this panel, and for everyone who attended. I know it's bleak, but we have to keep fighting and do everything that we can do to try to protect abortion access in the state of Florida. So please sign the petitions, get petitions signed, donate, do fundraisers. All of the links are in the chat, so please go ahead and visit each of them. We just have to keep fighting the good fight. And just so much gratitude for everybody who is working on this issue. So thank you so much. I am going to, yep, another thanks from an attendee. So I will post a recording of today's webinar on the Horizon YouTube channel. So be on the lookout for that if you want to share it. Our website again is joinhorizon.org. I look forward to seeing all of you again sometime soon, and take care. Thank you.